Go for the pulls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
What's up, everybody, and welcome in to the Legal Hands to the Face show. And it's Monday night. We are almost 24 hours removed from that debacle in Dallas. And I just keep getting angrier and angrier all day. For some of my crew who's here, who are part of the Philly Sports Power Hour, I spent an hour today going off, thinking that I was going to get it all out, all my frustrations with this team out, and it just keeps building and building and building in me all day long. And now my anger is also starting to turn to a little bit of disappointment, because reality is starting to set in that this team that we had such high hopes for of going back and repeating as NFC champions and going to Las Vegas to be in Super Bowl 58 is becoming less and less likely. And we're going to dive into it all. I want to talk about that Dallas game. I want to talk to you about who I blame for where this Philadelphia Eagles organization is right now. And I am not overreacting. I know people in the chat are going to say, hey, they're still 10-3. They can still backdoor their way into a number one seed or an NFC East championship. I don't care about their record. I don't care about the standings. What I care about is what I'm seeing with my own two eyes on the field for not only one game, not only two games, but the last 6 games on that defensive side of the football. Simply not good enough. And what the hell is going on with this Philadelphia Eagles offense with all the talent that they have? So we're going to talk about it all. We're going to be joined by Mike Miss later today. Get his opinions on what's going on with this Philadelphia Eagles team. So stay tuned for Mikey Miss joining the Legal Hands to the Face show, his first appearance on the show. And for those of you who are here, this is being simulcast on the JAKIB Sports Network, as well as my YouTube channel, Bill Colarulo and Legal Hands to the Face Sports Talk. We'll upload the audio to all the podcast platforms. So if you're listening to the audio, you hear me referencing the chat, it's because we are recording this live on YouTube. Be sure to check out a live show so you can engage. But it's been a long, almost 24 hours now, trying to figure out what the hell happened with this Philadelphia Eagles team. And we'll take a look forward at the end of the show. We'll look at how this team can still backdoor their way into a 1 seed or an NFC East championship. We'll look at this Seattle Seahawks matchup on Monday Night Football in Seattle. And we'll end every Legal Hands to the Face show with a little Eagles trivia. So I got some Eagles trivia for you as well. But let's jump in because I got a lot to talk about before Mikey Miss joins the show. Eagles lose 33-13 in Dallas. The score doesn't even do it justice with how bad that game was. An absolute domination by the Dallas Cowboys. That's now 2 weeks in a row that the defense has looked absolutely terrible. Gave up 10 straight scoring drives between Dallas and San Francisco. Sloppy play on both sides of the football. 3 turnovers on offense. 10 penalties in that game. They now have a -4 turnover differential on the season. This is a team with Super Bowl aspirations. -4 turnover differential. Dallas is at a +10. And I talked about it earlier on my show. Sometimes You look at point differential, and that could be a little bit misleading because teams blow out certain teams. But when you look at turnover differential, this deep into the season, and you're sitting here with a -4 turnover differential, that tells you a lot. Your offense is sloppy, turning the ball over way too much, and your defense can't take it away. And that's been the case with this Philadelphia Eagles team. And it's not just the last 2 games. And let me start with the defense. We'll get to the offense in a second. Because the offense has all sorts of problems. But let's just start with some of these defensive numbers. Because I've had some people, if you don't follow me on Instagram, at Legal Hands to the Face, I had some people commenting to me, it's only 2 games. Oh, they were just going through a tough gauntlet of a stretch. Nothing for us to be too worried about. They are tired. This isn't just the last 2 games, guys. This isn't just a defense that is tired. You have to look at the last 6 games for this Philadelphia Eagles defense and understand that this has been a problem all season long. There were cracks in the armor early. And what we've seen over the last 6 weeks is just showing you that this defense is not a good defense. And that is not an over-exaggeration. Look at the last 6 weeks. Washington put up 472. Dallas in week 9, 406. Kansas City, 336. And that could have been worse. Think about the Kansas City Chiefs wide receivers and all those drop balls, how much worse that could have been. Then they come out against the Buffalo Bills, give up 500 yards of offense. San Francisco, 456, could have been worse. Dallas, 394, could have been worse. They're giving up 428 yards a game in their last 6 games. And I see Spa City Chop in the chat saying, Bill, we will still end up with the number 1 seed because both teams will lose one more game. Spa City Chop, I appreciate you being here, man. I do. But I don't care about the standings right now. I don't care about how this Philadelphia Eagles team can backdoor their way in to a number 1 seed or an NFC East championship. Because no matter what seed they are, this defense is not a championship defense. I asked the question on the Philly Sports Power Hour 2 weeks ago before the San Francisco 49ers game and said, is this defense a championship defense? And I was hopeful that maybe we would see them rebound, see them bounce back against the Niners and then the Cowboys after kind of being embarrassed by the Buffalo Bills. This defense is not good. And then I'm giving you numbers for the last 6 weeks. And I see Frank Gallo in the chat taking the words right out of my mouth. 6 games. It's been since week 1. Show me a game where their defense put 4 good quarters together. Bottom tier quarterbacks have been lighting this D up. Frank Gallo taking the words right out of my mouth because now that we have the luxury of looking back with hindsight being 2020, look at what Mac Jones did to this defense, putting up over 300 yards. Look at what Sam Howell did to this defense, absolutely dominated them. And this isn't just 2 games. This defense now sits in the bottom of almost every single meaningful category on the defensive side of the ball. When a team keeps showing you who they are week after week after week, we have to accept that this is just what this team is. They don't have a good defense. They don't have the right personnel on the defensive side of the football. And we'll get to the offense. We'll get there. But when I look at this defense, and I know a lot of people want to blame Sean Desai, the defensive coordinator, and I'm not thrilled with what the job that he's been doing. I don't think Sean Desai is doing a great job as the defensive coordinator. Trust me. Not making excuses for him. But if we're going to give a majority of the responsibility for what is going on the defensive side of the football, I don't think it would matter who your damn coach was as your defensive coordinator when you're rolling out the personnel that you're rolling out on the defensive side of the ball. And that falls squarely on the shoulders of Howie Roseman. We give Howie Roseman credit every time he does something good. Whenever we look at this roster, oh, Howie Roseman's a genius, and Howie we trust. I do the same thing. I think Howie Roseman is a good general manager. But if he's going to take the credit when things are good, he's got to share in the responsibility when things are bad. And you look at this defense, outside of that front four, there is a severe lack of talent in the back seven. And this shouldn't have come as a surprise to anyone. We were saying it all summer long about the linebacker position. I know I was. You follow me on Instagram at Legal Hands to the Face. If you followed this podcast all summer long, I was worried about the linebacker position. And Howie Roseman ignored it. Tried to just sign guys like Nick Morrow. Put all of his hopes into Kobe Dean. 34 career snaps before this season. And when it became clear in training camp that they had problems at this position, Howie Roseman went out and started signing people off the street. Had to bring in Zach Cunningham. Had to sign Miles Jack, who retired a couple days later to go to trade school, for God's sakes. They do not value the linebacker position, and it caught up to them this season. And then you look at the safety position. Let Marcus Epps walk. Let Chauncey Gardner-Johnson walk. I'm good with Reed Blankenship. Kid plays hard. I'm getting a little nervous that he may be injury prone. But then you look at that other safety position, and they tried to piecemeal that position. Terrell Edmonds, Justin Evans, who we knew had injury problems. Well, now he's on IR. He's done. Terrell Edmonds is in Tennessee because once it became clear they had problems at the safety position, Howie Roseman had to scramble and trade for an aging veteran in Kevin Byard, who's lost a step. And then you look at the corners. 2 30-year-old corners. And we can debate whether or not Darius Slay has lost a step. I see some people in the chat talking about Darius Slay and his coverage grade last night. And according to Pro Football Focus, Slay had a good game. Didn't give up any catches. He had that one pass interference called against him. But then you look at James Bradbury on the other side, who is supposed to be an all-pro. And he has taken a massive step backwards. No matter what stats you look at, what grades you check, Pro Football Focus, all of it, James Bradbury has taken a huge step backwards. You have nobody to play slot corner because, once again, we were hopeful Avonte Maddox would stay healthy. Why in the hell we would think Avonte Maddox, who hasn't stayed healthy his entire damn career, would be healthy this season? And now we're left with a back seven that can't cover anybody. We're left with a back seven that gives up so many damn third downs that every time you're watching the game and it's 3rd and long, you're sitting on the edge of your seat because you just know they're going to give up another 3rd down. And if you follow this show, you follow me on Instagram, you know there are 3 keys to every game that I talk about. Turnovers, 3rd down, red zone. That usually will tell you who won the football game. You look at turnovers in that game. Eagles had 3 of them. They actually forced a turnover on defense, scored a touchdown, something the damn offense couldn't do. I'm getting myself all worked up. But you look at the turnovers, this team has struggled all season in creating takeaways on defense, and they have not protected the ball on offense. Last year, this offense only turned the ball over 19 times through 17 games. Here we are after 13 games. They've already turned it over 19 times. And they're not taking it away. I told you when we started the show, -4 turnover differential. But it's third down and red zone that has me really heated with this defense. Your Philadelphia Eagles defense, the defense that we were hopeful was going to lead us to a Super Bowl this year, is the worst third down defense in the entire NFL. Let me say that again. The worst third down defense in the entire NFL. We love to talk about, oh, that team sucks. Oh, yeah, that's a guaranteed win. Oh, yeah, the Eagles are going to beat the Giants. Yeah, the Eagles are going to beat Arizona. Those teams stink. Our defense stinks. 32nd on third down. They came into that game on defense, on third down, the worst in the league, letting teams convert 47% of the time. 47% would have been a godsend in the Dallas game. They let the Cowboys convert 56%. And that doesn't even tell the true tale. Because you look at the first half of that game, when it really mattered, they let Dallas go 6 of 8 for 75%. 75% on third down. They were already the worst in the league at 47%. They let Dallas go 75 in the first half. And then you look at red zone. They were 29th in the league coming in the red zone, and they let Dallas go 3 for 3 for a perfect 100%. They now sit at number 30. Thankfully, the Carolina Panthers are even worse in the red zone than our Philadelphia Eagles. And I did a video on my Instagram today. I talked about it on the Power Hour today, about who do I blame most for where we find ourselves. And I had some people saying they're still 10-3. When I say where we find ourselves, what I mean is my expectations and my measuring stick of what a successful season would be this year wasn't to make the playoffs, wasn't just to win the NFC East. Anything short of going back to a Super Bowl would be a disappointment when you looked at the roster we have on the offensive side of the football. And it would not have been difficult for Howie Roseman to put a couple of pieces on that defense to make this defense at least a little bit more respectable. And I don't want to hear about, oh, well, this is what happens when you pay a wide receiver $100 million. This is what happens when you pay a quarterback $200 million. No. TJ Edwards isn't making that much money. Marcus Epps isn't making that much money. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson isn't making that much money. They chose to let those guys walk. And the real problem, which we'll talk about later in the show, has been Howie Roseman's draft record. I talked about it today on the Philly Sports Power Hour. Outside of drafting defensive tackles, I want to go through Howie Roseman's draft history over the last few years with defensive players. And unless it's a defensive tackle, it is a massive swing and miss by Howie Roseman every single time. And you know, in this league, the only way to be successful is to have guys on rookie contracts. With the salary cap, you have to have players, young players, who can contribute to your team on a rookie deal. You can't do this with free agents and trades all the time. And I see people in the chat talking about Sean Desai. I am not saying Sean Desai is doing a great job. And I said this today, you could put lipstick on a pig. It is still a pig. There's only so much you can do with this defense, guys. You see it out there with this personnel. It's not on the coaches all the time. The personnel on defense is not good enough. Now, you want to talk about coaches and you want to talk about coordinators. Well, let's talk about on the offensive side of the football. Because I've been a guy who has defended Brian Johnson. And I've defended Brian Johnson because when you look at the final numbers from a statistics perspective, it doesn't look like they've taken a big step backwards. But this is no longer passing the eye test. There is something wrong, and there is something that seriously needs to be fixed on the offensive side of the football. When you have that much talent on offense, there is no excuse for what we've seen the last 4 games in the first half. Look at the last 4 games. Kansas City, they put up 7 points in the first half. Buffalo, they put up 7 points in the first half. San Francisco, they put up 6 points in the first half. And then Dallas, they put up 6 points in the first half, and that was all they were able to do on offense the whole damn game. You remember how good this Eagles offense was last year in the second quarter of games? So far this season, a negative 58 point differential in the second quarter. Second worst in the entire NFL, only to the Carolina Panthers. This is a team we're supposed to be excited is going to go to a Super Bowl? And you look at the numbers on the offensive side of the football. In the beginning of the season, they were close to the 2022 numbers, and they're getting farther and farther away because the offense seems to be getting worse and worse. I know they're playing better teams. But the frustrating thing for me is I just talked about the personnel on the defensive side of the football and how I put that on Howie Roseman. Well, you look at the personnel on the offensive side of the football, and you tell me what's changed. You still have Jalen Hurts. You still have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on the outside. You still have Dallas Goedert at tight end. You lost Miles Sanders, but you replaced him with DeAndre Swift. You still have your entire offensive line except for Isaac Sayamala, and I think Cam Jurgens was just fine as that replacement at right guard. So what is the glaring difference on the offensive side of the football if it's not personnel? Shane Steichen, who's doing a hell of a job in Indianapolis, a hell of a job, was a great play caller last year while he was here. Is a great play caller with Gardner Minshew mania running wild in Indianapolis. And I don't even care about the stats. You guys know, you follow me. I love my statistics. I love looking at the stats and analyzing everything. Let's just talk about the eye test with that offense. And you tell me if that offense looks like it is a high-powered offense. And you look at the numbers I just gave you, what's going on in the first half of the last 4 games. That is a week of game planning by Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson and that entire offensive coaching staff. Game planning to put up 7 points or less in a first half. The offense looks disjointed. There's no rhythm. The route designs are ridiculous. They refuse to try to establish any sort of running game with the running backs. At first, we thought Jalen was hurt. That's why they stopped running so many RPOs. Well, that can't be the case anymore. They're calling quarterback draws. They just eliminated any of the other option to the run. There's no run-pass option anymore. It's a quarterback draw. Jalen has to run it. So I don't want to hear that Jalen's hurt, so we can't run RPOs anymore. This offense lacks creativity. It lacks any sort of rhythm. And when you have the personnel that they have on the offensive side of the football, it's unacceptable. And we knew coming into this season that the strength of this team was going to be on offense, that the defense was going to go through some growing pains with all the personnel they let leave in the offseason. And love him or hate him, Jonathan Gannon did a good job with that defense last year. And it's not a novel idea to say, hey, you know what? Our defense is really struggling. Dallas has an unprecedented good offense at home this season. They were doing things. If you follow the Philly Sports Power Hour, I was given stats all week about how good this Dallas offense was. Doing things in their first 6 games at home that only 2 other teams in NFL history had ever done, and both of those teams were quarterbacked by Tom Brady. That's how good that Dallas offense has been. So it's not a novel idea to come out and say, hey, you know what? Our defense isn't that good. Our defense is in the bottom of almost every statistical category. And we're going up against an offense with the Dallas Cowboys that's really putting up a lot of points at home, putting up a lot of yards at home. Maybe, just maybe, a novel idea would be to try to win the time of possession battle. Let's try to establish the running game behind what's supposed to be one of the best offensive lines in football. And let's keep that Dallas Cowboys offense on the sidelines. No, that would be too smart. Let's give DeAndre Swift, once again, 4 carries in the first half. And I went over the numbers before. You look at what they do with DeAndre Swift. They just completely ignore him for halves at a time. They refuse to try to establish any sort of running game to help their defense out, to keep the opposing offenses on the sideline. I'm trying to find some positives here, guys, and we'll talk about what some of you guys are talking about with regard to, yes, they can still win the NFC East. Yes, they could still backdoor their way in to a number 1 seed. But my measuring stick was not winning an NFC East. That was not my measuring stick of success for this season. And you look at this team, and you look at this defense, and you look at what's going on the offensive side of the football. And I hate to say it, man, because I bleed green just like the rest of you guys do. This is not a championship team. And we're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, we're going to bring on Mike Missinelli, who maybe can give us some good news. Maybe he can make us feel a little bit better, but we will see. So stay tuned, guys. Hit that like button for me. Hit that share button for me. When we get back, we're going to be joined by the one and only Mikey Miss.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their Fantasy Pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, Then do what you usually do on a Sunday. Watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back into the Legal Hands to the Face Show. We're now joined for the first time on the Legal Hands of the Face Show. My man, Mikey Miss. What's going on, Mike?
How you doing, Billy? How are you tonight? I know everybody's down. I know you just said they can't win, and I probably agree with you, but I could give you a couple scenarios where this works out. You know, it's funny because right now everybody's got the red butt about this game and about the game last week. But as the week goes on, hope kind of creeps back in.
Yeah, it's funny because I was all upset last night on our post-game show, even saying, hey, they could lose to Seattle, but I started diving into some of the numbers against Seattle, and we'll get there. I think that's a win for the Eagles, but I'm still angry, Mike. I'm still angry because look, we talked about it at length last night. I know they're 10-3, but it's the way they've looked, not only against the Cowboys, not only against the 49ers, but you really take a look back now, having the luxury of hindsight being 2020, and there's been cracks in the armor all season, Mike.
Yeah, I don't think you were angrier than Seth Joyner was last night. Seth was so angry that he literally bet me $50 that the Seattle Seahawks would be the favorite in that game, which they are not. It's a little, smaller than it would normally be. But yeah, it's funny because hopes have been dashed a little bit. And I don't know. I hate to say we were all conned, but we kind of were in the context that, like, we're measuring the Eagles and what they were doing and how they just refused to lose against the teams that weren't San Francisco and Dallas. And we should have known that there were only two teams really of that elite status, and that's the 49ers and Dallas. So you really had to measure them against how they looked against those two teams. And we saw how they looked. They have given us the impression that there's no way they could win an NFC title game. But the way this shakes out, Bill, and I heard you say maybe I can give the people some hope. Here are a couple things that could happen. First of all, the 49ers could lose to the Ravens, and the Eagles could win out. Now, they're going to be favored against Seattle. They're going to be favored against the remaining three teams that they play. So, I mean, that's not outlandish to say that. The 49ers kicked themselves out of the sweepstakes by losing to the Ravens, and the Eagles sweep and get the number one seed. That's one way they could do it. The other way is that the Cowboys could actually beat the 49ers in the playoffs, because the way it would shake out right now, the Cowboys would be the 5 seed. And their second game would be against the team laying in wait, the 49ers. Now, they would have to go to San Francisco to win that game, but stranger things have happened. It's a revenge situation. Maybe the Cowboys could win that game to take the 49ers out of play, in which case, if the Eagles win their second round game, which would probably be against the Lions, they could host the NFC title game.
Yeah. Everything you're saying is accurate, Mike. Everything you're saying is accurate. And I've been saying all day.
Give them hope. There is your hope.
But I've been saying it all day that I don't really care about them backdooring into the 1 seed or the NFC East championship, because I'm looking at this team, and I was fooled too, because we kept saying for the last few weeks, they just find ways to win. What a resilient group. They just keep figuring it out. But now when you really take a step back and you look at this team over 13 games now, this isn't just a small sample size, and you have a defense that is literally in the bottom of almost every single category. Is it really going to make a difference if they're the 1 seed, the 2 seed, or the 5 seed in the playoffs?
Yeah. I mean, listen, you're going to be a better team at home when you host that kind of the magnitude of a playoff game. But you're right about the defense, so maybe it's unrealistic to think it. The Eagles are trying to run a powerful Ferrari with aftermarket parts. They've been using aftermarket parts on defense. They slap in this guy and they throw in this guy. And you understand that good defenses in the NFL aren't just slapped together. Like, the Roby thing was a good idea because they were desperate. The Byard thing was a good idea because they were desperate. The Shaq Leonard thing was a good idea only because they were desperate. They're playing with two guys that weren't even on the roster at linebacker at the start of the year. The younger players have not been developed. The guys that they throw in there, like the Ricks and the Sidney Brown, they're not ready for that level of competition. So everything is an aftermarket part that's been thrown in there. And the bottom line is, the surest thing you could say about their defense, if they're not getting home with their front four, their back seven aren't going to help them out. So if you have a situation like that, the only way you can contend with the good teams is you occasionally will have to outscore them. Like you have Dallas, you're going to have to score in the 30s. Their offense is not capable of scoring in the 30s because their offense design and scheme, I have no idea what they're trying to do half the time.
So you look at these three coordinators, and I said this to you last night. It's amazing to me that the best coordinator on the team right now is Michael Clay, who, if you would have told me that in the offseason, I would have thought you were crazy. But who do you think has been doing a worse job? Is it Sean Desai on the defensive side of the football, or would you blame more on Brian Johnson on the offensive side?
Desai has been lauded for his defensive adjustments at halftime in a lot of these games, right? I don't know if it's Brian Johnson or Nick Sirianni, because all the information we hear, this is what Sirianni wants to play. Brian Johnson is really just the conduit to what Sirianni wants to do. We talked about it a little bit last night. Jalen Hurts is not savvy enough without the RPOs right now. That doesn't mean he can't read a defense. He certainly can. But we know without the RPO threat, they've become very predictable. They don't use any motion. They don't use any fanfare to get the other team thinking. They've been a pretty staid offense. They haven't committed to the run. They get off the run. I don't know. DeAndre Swift seems to be a disappearing act. I don't know why they don't use him consistently more than they do. But it's either A.J. Brown on a certain play or Devontae Smith on another play. They didn't get anybody else to catch a pass yesterday, except Zacchaeus on a fake punt. So that offense was stayed last night in conjunction with the fact that their defense is just gassed or not good enough.
So I talked about this at length today on my other show, the Philly Sports Power Hour, that I put a majority of the blame on Howie Roseman, because I know we all want to point the finger at the coordinators. And I do think Brian Johnson has, you talk about aftermarket parts, not on offense. They got a lot of skill on offense, but on defense, they certainly do. But the reason I blame Howie, Mike, is with the way that the NFL salary cap works, you have to have young players on rookie deals that can contribute to a team, or you're never going to be successful, especially when you have a wide receiver that makes $100 million, a quarterback that's making over $200 million. You got to have young players. I went and pulled up all of his defensive draft picks for the last 6 years. And outside of being able to draft defensive tackles, Howie Roseman has swung and missed so many times on that defensive side of the football, Mike. I'm not going to count this season because these guys are still rookies. You don't expect a lot of them to contribute, but just look at the first-round draft picks. Jalen Carter, D-tackle. We know he's good at that. Nolan Smith, you took him in the first round. You're expecting a little bit more from Nolan Smith. What are you seeing from Nolan?
You're not seeing anything from him. I mean, they're even afraid to play him. They put him in a couple of plays that he's not ready to play. I don't know what it is with these guys. They really don't understand the NFL concept. Keely Ringo made a terrible play yesterday. I don't know if it's the coaching staff not developing these guys, or because it seems like other guys go elsewhere and play well, and there's plenty of examples of that. And last year they devalued a couple guys they probably shouldn't have devalued. But this whole philosophy of devaluing positions goes way back to Andy Reid. I mean, Andy Reid still has his imprint on this organization because way back in the day, he was devaluing certain positions like linebacker and wide receiver. And so Howie has come up through that system where he is just steadfast against the linebacker position. I don't understand it. I mean, in this day and age where there's so many mobile tight ends that can catch passes, so many guys come out of the backfield, you got to have linebackers that can cover. So it's kind of like malpractice to devalue a linebacker in this day and age. Look at the 49ers linebackers. I mean, my God, they fuel that team on defense. So, so I would definitely blame him. And you can't just tack on. You got to have a philosophy and build with some defenders back there. You can't just throw a guy in because you're desperate. There's a reason why Byard and Roby were available, right? Their team said, yeah, you know what? It's not the same. It's not the same. So you take guys like that. If they're not the same, you throw them into a system they have to learn. You throw them into a system where they have to really blend with other players who have been there. What are you expecting? You know, I don't know. Maybe you could click your fingers and that happens. But it certainly doesn't look like it to me. That defense is really struggling. And now with Blankenship hurt, and he's probably going to miss the Seattle game. I don't know what to think about this next game.
Yeah, Blankenship's got a lot of talent. Really, we talk about young talent on defense. He's got it. But I hope that the injury bug isn't something that's going to bother him his whole career, because now we've seen it. Short career so far, but he seems to be in and out of the lineup a lot.
No, he's a slammer.
Yeah,
so when you're a slammer, you're going to get banged up. And if you're a slammer with your head, which, that was a bad hit he took there, it's never good. But that's what we all crave. We crave that safety. We crave that Sidney Brown that comes down crashing. We crave the Blankenship comes down crashing. Well, you put yourself in peril that way also.
But just listen to these draft picks real quick, Mike. So outside of defensive tackles, so those following along in the chat, I'm not going to mention the D tackles because that's one thing he does well. But you look at the last few defensive draft picks. Nakobe Dean, we still have no idea what we're getting from him. Kyron Johnson, defensive end, hasn't done anything. Zach McPherson on IR. Teron Jackson, defensive end, not getting anything from him. Jacoby Stevens, Patrick Johnson, Davion Taylor, Kevon Wallace, Sean Bradley. The list goes on. Sharif Miller.
Well, you missed on Derek Barnett also.
Derek Barnett, yeah, that's going way back.
Yeah,
2017.
You missed on that. That was a premier draft pick. Yeah, I get it. It's like defensive tackles or bust for this team, right? It's like, we got to have our defensive tackles. We got to have our interior linemen. We're good there. But you're right. The Eagles, I said that stat yesterday, are the worst team in the league at pressuring the quarterback on third down, sacking the quarterback on third down. And their pressures were feeble. His first 25 throws, that Zach yesterday, they got 5 pressures. Forget about Zach. They got 5 pressures on those first 25 throws of Zach Prescott. So they're not getting home when they stay on the field on third downs. How many third downs does the opponent convert against this team? They just keep them on the field and keep the drive going. Boom. And Dallas did it all day yesterday.
So frustrating. Me and you watch the games together. Mike gets to see my frustrations a lot of these times on these third downs, but
I sit there calmly. You guys
Mike is very calm. You are very calm during the game.
I sit there calmly. I'll just let you guys go off.
Yeah, Farzi's pretty calm too. It's pretty much just me and Seth yelling at the screen. We got to get a camera in the green room, Mike. I think that would be pure gold entertainment for watching Seth Joyner watch a game.
That'd be like a Hard Knock show.
So let me ask you though, am I being too hard on this team? They are 10-3.
You're being hard on them in the lens of what has just happened, which is easy to do. They just lost to 2 premier teams. I think we can come to the conclusion that unless something drastic happens, they're not as good as those 2 teams. And we can see it plainly. They're not overall as good. We thought they may have been. Maybe we disregarded the fact that we were kind of on borrowed time with this team. I know I did. I thought that they had the heart that would pull out games, and that's a special trait in a team. But when it comes down to talent now, we get to the end of the season. Clearly, those other 2 teams are well more prepared and more talented and better coached at this point than the Eagles. So what happened to me yesterday was that, to me, their Super Bowl hopes are dashed. I'm no longer thinking that they're a capable team that can actually go to the Super Bowl, go there, much less win it. So I look for consolation prizes on what the best thing that could happen is. And the best thing that could happen is they wouldn't play the 49ers in the NFC title game. out there. So you look for all these ramifications of what would have to happen, and that depends on other teams losing.
Let's talk about the Cowboys for a second, because we talked a little bit about it on the pregame. Everybody keeps waiting for the Cowboys to turn into the Cowboys. Is this year going to be different for them? Because they do look good, Mike. They really do, especially at home.
Well, again, let me ask you, can the Cowboys win in San Francisco, an NFC title game?
I think San Francisco is the number one in the NFC, and then I actually think there is a huge drop-off, even to Dallas. That's how good San Francisco is.
I would agree. So it would be an upset. If you look at a game, an NFC title game, Dallas going there, Dallas would be what? 4-point underdog? 4.5-point underdog?
Yeah, in a playoff.
So I agree with you. I think the 49ers are the strongest team, but Dallas is no joke. I mean, their defensive backs are pretty good. Those guys can cover, I would pick the 49ers in a game like that. But, it goes to me 49ers, Dallas, and then the Eagles dropped a couple notches below. There are three upper echelon teams. There's an upper echelon team, there's a close to upper echelon team, and then there's the Eagles, who's just scratched now the surface of being an upper echelon team. And I thought that they were going to be better than that.
And you mentioned Dallas's D-backs. Let's talk about our corners for a second, because the Pro Football Focus grades came out, and they graded Darius Slay pretty high against the Cowboys. Basically said he didn't give up any passing yards. He did have that one pass interference, but it had James Bradbury again having a pretty bad game. Is that what you're seeing as well, that Slay's still kind of playing at a decent level and Bradbury's the problem back there?
Yeah, Slay doesn't overwhelm me, but I agree that he wasn't that bad again. The only thing about him is that he annoys me in that he doesn't seem to see his flaws at all. And he goes towards the braggadocious part of it, where he's gets offended on social media and goes back, claps back at people. You're not good enough to do that. If you're in a great year, you can do that, but you're not that great. You have a passing grade by me, and you're right. Bradbury has lost something. I don't know what it is. He doesn't seem to be confident. I mean, that one play where he's playing the guy on the outside left shoulder, or the receiver's right shoulder, and then he just lets his feet get tangled and lets the guy cut in towards the skinny post. And a veteran cornerback should be a little more wise to that. Like, he got beat bad on that, and he's a veteran corner who should know better than that. He's lost something.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's how it looks. And not that Pro Football Focus is the Bible, but I think they do a good job. You look at the grades they gave Bradbury and Slay last year. Slay had a 73 overall. Bradbury was a 74 overall. And then you look at this year, Slay's dipped to a 68, not a huge drop-off, but Bradbury's dropped all the way to a 58, especially in coverage, which is a problem, especially when you have safeties like the Philadelphia Eagles have and a slot corner that's been a revolving door.
Their whole defensive backfield seems to be chasing. They're never in the best position. They're always chasing down somebody. And so that's fundamental, but it also might be that's who they are. At this stage, you're talking about guys that are 30 plus. And the young guys clearly are too green to make an NFL difference.
Let's jump over to the offense real quick, Mike, because I want your opinion on Jalen Hurts. I'm one of the biggest Jalen Hurts fans out there. I still think he's one of the top echelon quarterbacks in this league, but he hasn't necessarily been playing like that. What do you think is going on with Jalen? A lot of people were concerned about the knee. They're calling run plays to him, which makes me think that he's okay from a health perspective. What's going on with Hurts?
That's the big paradox. You're not afraid to call that, but you're afraid to run RPOs because you just made this major investment. And we talked about this yesterday. I know Seth's theory is that when you make an investment and they saw him get hurt, it's like forget about RPOs from this point on. But they're calling straight running plays with him. I think he has lost a little confidence without the RPO. I think the RPO to him is like a whoopee, and it made him feel comfortable. It got in his wheelhouse that he could do this so well that it's like second nature to him. So when you take that away, I mean, you see him in the pocket; he's holding the ball too long. You look at Dak Prescott, the way he's improved himself, getting the ball out of his hands, like boom, boom, gets it out. Now I know they're probably they've got a better scheme than the Eagles, but he's unless he's rolling out to his right or sometimes to his left to make a big throw. And he did that, was his big throw in the first quarter where he rolled out and he finds a guy. But in the pocket, he's just holding on to the ball too long, and he's not surveying and making a quick decision on where to go with it. They also abandon the slant every now and then. They did it against San Francisco. I didn't see it much against the Cowboys, even though A.J. Brown had a lot of catches. There's something wrong with it. They don't use any motion. They're staid. They're not. They don't commit to DeAndre Swift. There's a ton of things that I look at and go, why are we doing this? So, and I don't know if that's Brian Johnson. I think it's Sirianni.
Yeah, Sirianni definitely has his fingerprints all over this game plan. And that's what's been so surprising to me is the way they've come out on offense now, 4 straight games, putting up 7 points or less in the first half of 4 straight games. That's all week putting together a game plan. A lot of these play calls are scripted, and yet that's all you can do against these defenses?
What is it about that they use Boston Scott all of a sudden comes out of the woodwork and they have game on a game and they deprive Swift of those kind of carries? Like, I don't understand that. I really don't. I don't understand why they unless they just don't like Swift. They don't like what they see. I don't know why they don't commit to him.
And what I don't understand is you have some people in the media saying, hey, they're just saving DeAndre Swift. They don't want him to get hurt. Well, if you're not going to utilize him in a game like you just had on Sunday night against the Cowboys or the week before against the 49ers, what the hell are you saving the guy for? These were big games.
You got to look at who you're going to get big plays from, right? Isn't he one of the guys that you're going to get big plays from, whether it's him carrying the ball, whether you swing him out, put him in space? He's one of their assets. There are 3 assets against Dallas, fumbled the ball in Dallas territory. There are 3 main offensive guys because Swift is kind of a forgotten man. Those 3 guys. So you're dependent on those 3 guys. They gave the football away 3 times.
Yeah, the turnovers they have to clean up. They have to. But I'm seeing some people in the chat again talking about, it's just one game. Everyone's going to be back on the bandwagon after Seattle. But I keep trying to explain to people, it's not just one game. You look at this defense. They're 22nd in yards against, 28th in points against, 28th in passing against, 32nd on third down, 30th in the red zone. And the one thing we kept saying, well, at least they could stop the run. Mike, the last 4 games, they're giving up 156 yards a game on the ground, which would be worst in the NFL. Their last 6 games, they've given up over 420 yards a game and 30 points. So are you of the mindset, hey, it's just 1 or 2 games, or are you thinking like I'm thinking, which is this has been a problem now for pretty much the entire season?
Yeah, it's not. I mean, this bandwagon reference is a typical fan reaction, but I trump that by saying, okay, what's your reality? Because that's what I deal in. I deal in realities, and from being a sports talk host all these years, I tried to be as honest as I could, and instead of waving a pennant, I go, okay, like I look at the Sixers, I go, are the Sixers as good as Boston? Can I con myself into thinking they're as good as Boston? No. Can I con myself after what I just saw in 2 straight weeks that the Eagles are as good as the 49ers and Cowboys? It's not a bandwagon. It's reality. Now, that doesn't mean the Eagles stink. It means that they're the 3rd best team in the conference right now. And 3rd best is not going to get you to the Super Bowl. So I ask these people about the bandwagon, if I had truth serum and I could inject it in them, do you believe the Eagles are good enough right now to beat the 49ers if they had to match up with them in the NFC title game? And what would their answer be? That you should jump on the bandwagon? What are we going to do? We're going to con each other? It's a reality. We saw it. We saw it live. Can they regenerate? What can make the Eagles regenerate to the point where we go, well, you know what? They're just as good as the 49ers. It's too late for that. There's nobody else on the street they're going to add that's going to help this team. They can't scheme their way on offense to get to 30 points plus because they just don't have that kind of thing. So if their defense is giving up 30 to good teams, how can they win?
See, that's the one area I do disagree with you, Mike, as I do think the offense has the talent enough that they could probably put up 30 or more points. But I think if they're giving up 30, the defense is giving up 38. I can't imagine that this defense is going to be able to shut anybody down. And that's
they needed to score 30 Sunday, Bill. They needed to score 30 Sunday. They didn't get an offensive touchdown.
Well, I think the offense is definitely in a – see, when I look at these two sides of the ball, I think the offense can be fixed. I blame a lot of that on play calling, play design, game planning, but the talent is still there. I look at the defense, and I don't care who you bring in to coach that defense. I just don't think they have the skill, no matter what they do, to be able to shut teams down. And that's why, Mike, I get so frustrated about the running game. We talk about it a lot. I know this isn't the 90s. I know you can't run the ball 40 damn times. But when you have a defense as bad as this Eagles defense is, why aren't you establishing the run? Why aren't you trying to win the time of possession battle to limit the possessions of the opposing offense?
They get off of it. When it doesn't work at the start, they get off of it. But again, to me, the only measuring stick for the Eagles for these last two games, they're the two teams. Look, we can forget about everybody else in the NFC. Detroit's a pretender. And there's nobody else. Like there are two teams that you had to measure yourself against. So they didn't score against either team. So this offense with these weapons is going to they just showed you they couldn't score against the two elite teams. So what's going to change, Bill? What can change?
You were supposed to make me feel better, Mike. That was the.
I'm just saying, like, I can't get past the reality of this. They had a chance to score with those two teams. They didn't.
No.
So, and they didn't because their offensive scheme is all over the place. You can't predict what they're going to do. They have no rhythm or rhyme. So that's what I say. Like, what can change for this team? They either have to outscore a good team or they have to defend against a good team. They couldn't do either against the two measuring stick teams.
Yeah, that's
the only thing I go back is the shot in the moon playoff scenario. I can't, in realistic terms, look at the paper of what the Philadelphia Eagles are now and compare them to those other two teams. What I have to look at is the scenarios that would enable them to squeeze in.
No, I hear you. And that's why today I keep going back and forth between being angry and then kind of being a little bit down and disappointed because I'm realizing this just isn't the team that we had all these Super Bowl hopes for. They're just not good enough.
We have seen this in other sports, though. And you know, like, we have had a good run in Philly with sports teams. But, like, I didn't think that the Phillies were as good as the Astros. Like, I come to that conclusion, that other team was just better. And I've come to grips with the Sixers where when they get into the second round, I go, you know what? They lose to a team. That team's better. They've got to now have another offseason to figure it out. And I'm looking at the Eagles and I go, those two teams are just better. I wished it was different. But they have created a situation now for the front office and the organization to say, okay, here's why we're not better. So let's fix it. Now, maybe a lightning bolt comes down. And the Eagles do win in San Francisco. And they have one of those fluke games where they somehow beat the 49ers and they get to the Super Bowl. And that's where the people will be complaining about the bandwagon, saying, well, you're not allowed back home now. When nobody could have possibly thought they would have done that.
Yeah, anything can happen. All right, I got one more question for you. Let's move away from the Eagles for a second. I want to talk about Big Red and Patrick Mahomes. Yes. So did you see how that game ended?
Yes.
They call the offsides on Tony, and Mahomes and Reed lose their mind after the game, talking about the refs, how you can't make a call like that in that moment. Did Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes forget about the holding call in Super Bowl 57? I mean, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, they don't measure it that way. They measure it, but they came out today and apologized. Apparently, they had a different look at it. Those kind of situations are really weird, where an official is right there, knowing that the guy is. Remember, he's played high school football and you played college football, where an official will give you the benefit of the doubt,
or yell to you back up.
Hey, number 18, take a step back. They don't. I guess they don't do that in the NFL. And Tony could have looked to the guy and maybe gotten an indication, but he didn't, and he was offside. So it's a shame because that was a great play, and that would have been one of the plays that we review and reviewers review as one of the great plays ever. It just didn't happen. But the thing about Andy Reid, I don't know. That team seems to be the rope is fragmenting a little bit with that team. And I see a situation where that team's going to unravel a little bit. They had their heyday, and it happens to all teams that are good, and they stay on top for a while, but they unravel every once in a while. I think the Chiefs are on the verge of that, and therefore I think that maybe Andy Reid is on the verge of that. We're looking around the league. Tomlin's on the verge of that. Belichick's on the verge of that. They've had their day, and it could unravel. Now, for Reid, it's going to take several years before that would happen, but it happened here with Andy Reid. So,
yeah, it did happen here. And you were talking earlier about neglecting certain positions, and you mentioned how Andy Reid neglected the wide receiver position in Philly. Well, it's kind of come full circle. That's kind of been their downfall in Kansas City this year.
Hey, you're looking at, listen, Andy Reid's a Hall of Fame coach, right? But he's a Hall of Fame coach, just like Belichick is, because they had the great number one. they had QB1. And when QB1 is going to hit a little bit of a wall, because it happens to everybody, and that team with attrition, they start to lose their edge a little bit. That's what happened. I think the Chiefs are done.
Yeah, you look back now, that win that the Eagles had in Arrowhead doesn't look as impressive looking back after the last 3 games.
Yeah.
But
and see, Mahomes knows it, because that's why he was so out of control on that sideline. It's a bigger issue for him going, we used to be the superpower, and we're no longer that superpower, and I'm going to take it out on the world by acting like a child on the sidelines.
What just bothered me so much is because you look at the holding call in Super Bowl 57, that is in the moment, in real time, they throw that flag. The ref threw the flag on Tony before the play happened. So they took this wonderful play away from us. The flag came out as soon as the ball was snapped. It wasn't like he could go back and say, we're going to pick up the flag because it was such a nice play.
But isn't that like you're baiting a guy into a penalty if you're an official? It's like, I see the guy's foot. I can't wait to throw this flag. Why can't hey, Tony, back up a couple steps before the snap?
But it's been a point of emphasis. Apparently, it's been a point of emphasis. I looked at a stat today that last season it was only called, I think, twice all year. It's already been called like 12 times this season. I think they've been calling it more.
I get it, but that means they're baiting the receiver. Like they could very easily say, "Hey, 18, take a step back."
I used to come up to the line. I used to always come up to the line and go to the ref. I'm on the line, sir. I'm on the line, sir.
Yeah, you check.
And they would tell you, back up 5.
Right, and that doesn't happen at NFL level. It's like I don't know. It's like you're baiting a guy into a penalty if you're an official. I can't wait to throw this. Look, I know he's offside. Wait, when you see my form, I'll throw this yellow flag.
Yeah, Mahomes and Reid, though, they were heated. Well, that's Mikey Miss. I appreciate you joining the show, my man. This was fun.
All right, Bill. Good talking to you.
I will see you. Yeah, I'll see you Sunday. And when's the Mike Missinelli podcast roll out?
Mike Missinelli podcast. I did one today, so people can see it. This was my view of what happened yesterday. People can get the Mike Missinelli podcast on all podcast networks. I went off today a little bit, so this will be a good one. And I do 2 podcasts a week, and then of course we do our big show. So that'll be Monday night. We got out of there pretty late last night.
It'll be another late one on Monday, man.
It'll be another late one on Monday. Buckle up.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you, Mike. You have a good week. I'll see you this weekend.
Right,
I'll see you Monday night.
All right, take care.
Mikey Miss joining the Legal Hands of the Face show. Always fun talking with Mike Missinelli. So when we get back, guys, I'm trying to find some positivity here going forward. So what I think may help us out a little bit is we're going to take a look forward to the Seattle Seahawks matchup, because there are some promising things when you look at the numbers and look at this Seahawks team that should be promising for our Philadelphia Eagles this week, but nothing's a sure thing with the way the Eagles are playing. And then we'll do a little bit of Philadelphia Eagles trivia as well before we leave the show. So stay tuned, hit that like button, hit that share button. Make sure you are subscribed to JAKIB Sports and to my YouTube, Bill Colarulo, and Legal Hands of the Face Sports Talk. We will be right back, guys. Stay tuned.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their fantasy pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday. Watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back into the Legal Hands to the Face show on this Monday night. We're going to take you all the way to the 8 o'clock hour. We have 2 Monday night football games tonight. You got Tennessee and Miami. Who the Giants have tonight? I'm drawing a blank now on who the Giants play tonight. Tommy Cutlets is playing again tonight. Oh, they got Green Bay. That's right. They got Green Bay tonight. Tommy Cutlets. I wish he wasn't on the Giants because I'd be rooting for Tommy DeVito. Be rooting for my paisan over there. And Xavier Spencer was here for the Philly Sports Power Hour. Now he's here for Legal Hands to the Face saying, I've been on point all day, man. I'm just trying to call it like I see it. And it's got me disappointed. It's got me disappointed. But we just had Mike Missinelli on. It was great talking to Mike. And I started to talk to him a little bit about this Eagles defense and the lack of young talent on this team. And the way to win in this league is if you're able to construct a roster with the salary cap where you have young players on rookie deals who are able to contribute. That's how you can be a contender in this league. And the Eagles just don't have a lot of young talent on the defensive side of the football. I love our D tackles. Jalen Carter, Milton Williams, Jordan Davis, great draft picks. But you look at everywhere else, and they've missed. They haven't drafted a linebacker that has contributed since Jordan Hicks in 2015. Think about that. You're going back 8 years since the last time they drafted a linebacker. Now, TJ Edwards, was an undrafted rookie. So you got to give Howie Roseman credit for bringing him in here, and you let him walk out the door. Marcus Epps, undrafted rookie, and you let him walk out the door. Last season, Marcus Epps played 99% of the snaps. I went and looked at it today. 99%. TJ Edwards, 94%. How would those two guys look on this defense right now? And I don't want to hear that they got paid a lot of money. They did not get paid a lot of money. And some people said TJ Edwards wanted to go back home to Chicago. I would have done whatever I had to do to keep him here. But they lost a lot of guys on that defensive side of the ball. Marcus Epps played 99%. TJ Edwards, 94%. Kazir White played 76% of the snaps. Wasn't a big fan of Kazir White, but probably better than what you have right now. CJ, GJ, he played 66%. We know he missed a few games there with that lacerated liver or kidney, whatever he had. And Javon Hargrave played 64%. But you look at this defense right now, and not only is the back seven not good enough, they also lack depth at the edge rushing position. It's crazy to me. That was a position that we thought was deep. And I have no complaints about Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat. Would I like to see Sweat get to the quarterback a little bit more? Sure. But those guys are good players. But behind Sweat and Reddick, you don't have much. And you look at last year's numbers, Josh Sweat only played 53% of the snaps last year because they had a nice rotation with defensive ends coming in. Brandon Graham getting a little bit more playing time last year. Well, this year, Sweat's number has increased from 53% up to 75%. He's gassed. He's going to start to tail off. Hassan Reddick was fine. He played 75 last year, 75 this year. He's fine. But really, outside of Josh Sweat, who else you have on the defensive end position? BG is good in spots. He's only playing 30% of the snaps, man. And that's probably all he can give you. But where you missed, where Howie Roseman missed this year, was you brought back Derek Barnett and you expected him to give you more than what you got. And then you released Barnett. He wasn't happy with his playing time. He gets released. Then you have Nolan Smith, who I'm not ready to rule out. It's his first year. He's a rookie. But you would have expected maybe a little bit more from Nolan Smith this year being a first-round draft pick. But you're not getting it. So, yeah, I think a majority of our problems are on the back seven. But they do also lack depth on the edge. And I'm hoping that doesn't turn out to be a problem down the stretch with a 17-game season. So we will see. But something's got to happen on that defensive side of the ball. Maybe Shaq Leonard, who didn't play much. Shaq Leonard only got, guys, if you want snap counts here, Shaq Leonard played 14 snaps in that game against the Cowboys, which was only 17% of the snaps. So he clearly wasn't ready. Morrow played 78%. Zach Cunningham played 74%. So it will be interesting to see once Shaq Leonard gets up to speed here, how many more reps they give him. But let's try to be a little bit positive. I know I saw some people saying, let's not be positive. But hey, I'm not going to stop watching this team. I know you guys aren't going to stop watching this team. So what that means is we got another game to get ready for. And even though I have given up my hopes and dreams that this team is going to beat the 49ers in the NFC Championship game, assuming all things stay equal. You never know what could happen. I'm not wishing injuries on anybody, but you just never know what can happen. But I'm not giving up on this team as far as watching them and rooting for them and hoping that they keep winning. And they got a game coming up on Monday night, a week from tonight, which means this show will be next Tuesday night. We always do it the day after. But you look at this Seattle Seahawks team, and as tough as Seattle is to play in on the road with how loud that stadium is and the 12th man and all that. This Seahawks team has not been very good this year. They have now lost 4 games in a row. After starting out 6-3, they have now lost 4 games in a row. They are 6-7. And I've been complaining all night and all day about this Eagles defense being in the bottom of every single category. Listen to some of these numbers for the Seattle Seahawks. Their defense, 28th in the league in yards against, 27th in the league in points against, 25th in pass defense, 23rd in run defense, 30th on third down. Eagles defense is worse. And 26th in the red zone. So we've been talking about this Philadelphia offense. 4 games in a row, only able to put up 7 or less points in 4 straight games. If this offense comes out against this Seattle Seahawks defense that has been really bad this season, so bad that Pete Carroll actually called them out. That's not like Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll's not a coach that calls his players out. Actually came out after the game and doubled down today, calling out players by name that they need to play better on the defensive side of the football. So this is the week. If we want to see this offense that has all the talent in the world bounce back and put up some points, this would be the week to do it against a Seattle Seahawks defense that struggled all season long. And then you look at that Seattle Seahawks offense. We don't even know who's playing quarterback for the Seahawks on Monday night. Geno Smith missed their last game against the 49ers with a groin. Pete Carroll was asked today. They still are unsure whether or not he's going to play. But whether it's Geno Smith or Drew Lock, as bad as this defense has been, please show up to play this game. They haven't been able to shut really anybody down. But don't let Geno Smith or Drew Lock beat you. Look, Seahawks have playmakers. We know DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. They have a really good young rookie, Jackson Smith-Njigba from Ohio State. But you look at this Seattle offense, and the numbers do not blow you away. They also have a rookie running back, Charbonnet. But the numbers don't blow you away. They're 20th in the league in yards per game, 17th in points per game, 15th in passing, 28th in rushing yards, 26th on third down, and 22nd in the red zone. If this Philadelphia Eagles defense can't get off the field on third down against one of the worst third down offenses in the NFL, I'm going to lose my mind on this show next week. I'm telling you that right now. This is a week where it's not going to change my mind about whether or not this team can beat the San Francisco 49ers. But it can certainly help the mojo get going if this team can come out on the road on Monday night in Seattle, going up against a team that's lost 4 straight games, that doesn't blow you away with their offensive numbers, that's in the bottom of the NFL with their defensive numbers, and right the ship. Because I'm not sure I'm going to be able to handle it if we see this offense come out and limp through another first half. I know I'm not going to be able to handle it if we see this defense come out and let the Seahawks offense do whatever they want. So a lot of things as far as a mojo perspective can get right on Monday. The game got flexed to Monday night. First time ever NFL has flexed a Monday game. So a lot could get fixed as far as mojo goes on that game. And we talked about it with Mikey Miss. Let's just take one more quick look even though I said I didn't care about the standings. Obviously, I have to care because that's why we play the games. But you look at this Eagles team, and I agree with Mike Miss and Ellie. Detroit Lions, I think, are not in the mix for the number 1 seed. They have 4 losses. I look at this as a 3-team race for that 1 seed. All 3 teams are 10-3. You got the Eagles at 10-3, the Niners at 10-3, and the Cowboys at 10-3. If you weren't listening today, because it was said everywhere, if the Eagles win out and the Niners win out and the Cowboys win out and all 3 teams finish 14-3, the Niners would be the 1 seed because they hold the tiebreaker over the Eagles in the head-to-head. But the Eagles would actually have the tiebreaker over the Cowboys for better conference record. So if the Eagles win out, they are the NFC East champions. Nothing else has to happen. If the Eagles win out, they would need the 49ers to lose 1 game for them to be the 1 seed. And on any given Sunday, we know anything can happen, but you look at the 49ers' schedule. They're at Arizona this week, should be a win. Then their toughest game is home against the Baltimore Ravens. Then they're at Washington, home against the Rams. So the most likely scenario is that the 49ers either win out or maybe lose at home against the Ravens. That'll be a good game. That's not this Sunday. That's next Sunday. But you look at this Dallas Cowboys schedule, and as good as the Cowboys are, guy, I'm not taking anything away from the Cowboys. As good as they are, you look at this schedule, and it's not easy. They just played a big game against a division rival, Philadelphia Eagles, and now they have to go on the road to Buffalo. Bills are playing good football right now. Then they got to go on the road again to Miami. Not an easy game. Then they're home against the Detroit Lions and then on the road at Washington. So the Philadelphia Eagles, as much as I want to see them win out and get the mojo going, could probably lose another game and still backdoor the NFC East. But if they want that 1 seed and any shot at that 1 seed, they probably have to win out, and that still doesn't guarantee them the number 1 seed. But we were talking about this a little bit, and maybe this is getting a little ahead of ourselves here. But being a number 2 seed wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing in the world for the Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, you don't want to have to go on the road to San Francisco. Yes, you want that bye. But when you look at the way the playoff scenario will shake up, you're going to play as the 2 seed. You're going to probably play a team like the Green Bay Packers. You're going to play the number 6 seed. Oh, no, you'll play the number 7 seed, excuse me, because the number 1 seed gets a bye. You'll play the 7 seed to start at home. But the nice part is if you win that game, most likely the Cowboys as the 5 seed are going to knock off the NFC South winner, and they'd have to go to the San Francisco. So you'd get a division matchup against the Lions, most likely, which I still think the Eagles can beat the Lions. Not if they play the way they've been playing. And then you'd have San Fran and Dallas battling before that NFC Championship game. And I know I'm angry, and I know I'm upset about the way this team looks. And if they keep playing this way, they could lose to anybody. But I still think that they also can beat anybody, with the exception of the 49ers and the Cowboys, if they play the way they're playing right now. Not with this defense the way it is. But it all starts this week, guys. They got to take care of business on Monday night to get things right. Because if they lose 3 in a row, if we think the sky is falling now, it's really going to be falling if they lose to the Seattle Seahawks and drop their 3rd straight. So let's hope that doesn't freaking happen. Let's do a little Eagles trivia like we end every single show. And just a reminder, guys, not only hit that like button for me. When this show ends, head over to Twitter. Head over to Instagram. Make sure you're following Bill Colarulo and Legal Hands to the Face. we post daily content, all Eagles content all day long. And we also host a daily show right here on the JAKIB Sports Network, the Philly Sports Power Hour, every day from 10 to 11. Very heavy Eagles talk, but we also get into the Flyers. We get into the Sixers. We talk some Phillies, all Philadelphia sports. Tomorrow we'll be joined by Eagles insider Dave Spadaro, like we are every single Tuesday. Wednesday, we're joined by Kayla Santiago, who you've seen right here on the JAKIB Sports Network post-game shows. She does a great job covering the Sixers for us. We talk Sixers and Eagles with her. And then Thursdays, we're always joined by my man, Mark Farzetta, our Thursdays with Farzy. So check out the Philly Sports Power Hour right here, JAKIB Sports Network, 10 to 11. And if you're listening to the audio on your podcast platforms, we also upload the Philly Sports Power Hour daily to all your podcast platforms. So make sure you're subscribed on there as well. But let's take a look, guys, at our Philadelphia Eagles trivia today. So Jalen Hurts is currently 6th in franchise history for the most passing yards with 11,098. Can you guys name the top 5 quarterbacks in franchise history for passing yards? So I'll give you some time in the chat to hit me with the top 5. Jalen Hurts currently sits at number 6 with 11,098 passing yards. Who are the top 5 passers in franchise history? See if you can get these. Some of these are easy. There's one that I'm not sure people are going to get. So we'll see who else can come in the chat with that. And I see Wine Niners Wine saying he's defended me on Twitter. Yes, he did. I told you guys last week, or I told you on the Power Hour, my tweet got into a 49ers algorithm, and I have been getting trolled by 49ers fans. So Wine Niners Wine, my man, came to my defense on there. So I need you guys to help out a little bit. So I'm getting some answers to our trivia question here. So Nathan Hosman says Jaws, Cunningham, and McNabb. That is correct. That are 3 of them. You have Donovan McNabb at number 1. You have Ron Jaworski at number 2, and you have Randall Cunningham at number 3. There are 2 more. M. Reyes says Michael Vick. That is incorrect. Michael Vick is not in the top 5. Bruce Banner throws out a little Wentz and Foles. Foles is not in the top 5. Foles is number 10, but Carson Wentz is number 4. So we now have the top 4 in franchise history. And the question was, because I'm getting Mark DiStefano asking what the question was, Jalen Hurts currently sits at number 6 in franchise history with 11,098 passing yards. Who are the top 5 in franchise history in passing yards? So we know number 1, Donovan McNabb, 32,873. Number 2, Ron Jaworski, 26,963. Number 3, Randall Cunningham, 22,877. And number 4, Carson Wentz, 16,811. But who sits at number 5? And this is the hard one that I didn't think anybody was going to get. And Adams Exploit says Norm Van Brocklin, incorrect, but close. Little hint, incorrect, but close. And there it is. Wine Niners Wine nails it. Snead. Norm Snead, quarterback from 1964 to 1970 for the Philadelphia Eagles, is currently 5th in franchise history with 15,672. And Mark DiStefano got it as well with Norm Snead. So Jalen Hurts needs about 4,600 more yards to get into the top 5 to pass Norm Snead, and about 6,000 yards, 5,000 to get above Carson Wentz. But guys, I appreciate all of you here in the chat. I will see some of you tomorrow at the Philly Sports Power Hour, I know, but I had a lot of fun spending this 90 minutes talking Eagles with you guys. We had Mikey Miss on the show, which was great. So go ahead, do me a big favor, guys. Hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to my YouTube, Bill Colarulo. Make sure you're subscribed to the JAKIB Sports Network. And make sure you're following on all social media platforms. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Threads. Follow us everywhere. Engage. Send me messages. Let me know what you want to talk about on the show. I appreciate everybody. And as always, go Birds.
Go for the polls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.